Gran Turismo 4 has 721 cars in the game. You have lots of touring cars, LMP, Group C cars, JDM cars, and all kinds of other stuff. All good and unique in their own ways. But today, I want to try and see, is it possible to complete this game using the worst cars possible for the beginner and professional events? Now, for the worst starter car possible, it's going to be the Citroen 2CV. This lovely thing with 11 horsepower is what I'll use in Sunday Cup. I'll be using the track randomizer as well, which will replace the usual tracks in the game with other ones. So instead of Autumn Ring, I start off at Apricot Hill. Okay, maybe a bit more than 11 horsepower. Maybe 44 horsepower and with other upgrades. It somehow manages to make an event in Sunday Cup look more hectic than ever, with this Peugeot being pretty close to me and overtaking me a few times. But the 2CV holds it out and claims its first victory. Second race, I wanted to see if it can keep up without the nitro, but it's just not possible. So for the entirety of Sunday Cup, I had to use boost constantly. Sadly though, in the FF Cup, these upgrades can't really do much. It can stay a bit with the pack, but it falls off on the long straights. Now, does this mean the run is immediately dead? Well, there is one option left. I'll have to do the aspiration glitch on the 2CV. But what is the aspiration glitch? Normally, you can only have a turbo or supercharger or NA upgrade equipped. You can't have multiple of these at once. However, in version 105 of the Spec 2 mod, you can equip all of these parts at once. This is the car currently equipped with one of the items. To equip the other part, you have to go to the paint booth, choose whatever color you want, and then check the car settings. You will have both parts equipped, and now my car has 184 horsepower while also weighing 450 kilos. Now, how does this translate onto the track? It went from a 2CV to a 200 CV with these upgrades, and it clears the FF Cup. For the FR Cup, the worst car that I could find was the Daihatsu Midget. With max upgrades, it's about 96 horsepower, but those are rookie numbers. I think this needs some tougher opponents. So how will it do in the turbo competition? The cars in here have around 400 horsepower, but I do have the nitro and weight advantage over them. The only one that fought in here was the Evo, and it had the pace on the straight, but this car easily outbrakes it and snatches the lead from it. The next race, the A4 and Subaru were the quick ones. I was able to get them around the corners, but couldn't really shake them off. On the long straight, they had so much speed, and one of them proceeded to give the biggest back shot possible to the Daihatsu. Somehow, that hit actually helped me stay in the lead. I managed to win this race and also the remaining ones in this cup. The next thing it qualifies for is the truck competition. And honestly, you don't even need the aspiration glitch for this. Even with normal upgrades on the Midget, you'd be able to beat these opponents with ease. That is, unless the track randomizer spawns you on the chicaneless Circuit de la Sarthe. Then you might be in some trouble. The car can rest for a bit now. Time to go back to this thing. The cars in Clubman Cup have been buffed in Spec 2. The car was struggling to keep up and ultimately lost in the first attempt. Second one, I tried a different lineup, and even then it was a struggle to keep up. So I had to rely on wall rides to stay somewhat close to the leader. That helped out as I finally got my chance to overtake the Audi. The next few races were also tricky, as there was always that one guy that was super quick. In the second race, it was the Focus. We also had a mini drag race where the 2CV overtook for the lead. I don't know how, but this thing still manages to stay ahead. In the third race, the Dodge and TVR were challenging to keep up with, but they slowed each other down with their fighting, giving me a chance for first place. They were speed demons on the straights, especially the TVR with how close it was, but I managed to clutch it out with just 75 hundredths of a second. The rest of the races, the 2CV managed to win as well. Boxer Spirit is up next, and this one would be tricky with how powerful the Subarus and Roughs are. What, you expected me to actually take normal racing lines? My brother in Christ, this thing is on sports tires, not racing tires. It ain't gonna catch up to anyone around here like that. It only stood a chance with the silly approach. And even then, the rough kept smashing into my rear hoping to squeeze through, but it couldn't succeed. I got a little bit lucky here with the tracks as the second was just an extension of the previous race. However, it was a lot more painful, mainly the last sector. It was a nightmare with understeer to do, and the fact that I had to keep these guys behind somehow was also stressful. I don't know how, but somehow the track randomizer gave me the same track again for this race. So all 3 box of spitted races are pretty much on the same track, which honestly kind of suits the car, because on any other track, the 2CV is dead, like quite literally dead. So take it as you want for this one. City Slickers is pretty much Clubman Cup but with slower cars, which isn't an issue for the 2CV. World Compact, it managed to dominate quite easily. It feels weird to say that when I look at what I'm driving. In the World Classics Championship, there is only the AC, which can be a threat. On a track like this, it was already a loss for me. However, the AC did mess up slightly on the second lap, but I wasn't close enough to attack. So P2 to start off this championship. The second race was El Capitan, which helped me out. It did have a long straight here, but the AC struggled around the corners to keep its speed. Meanwhile, the 2CV can tackle the corners better. I slowly got closer and was able to send it for the lead. Now all I gotta do is keep him behind, especially on the uphill parts, as the 2CV barely has any momentum, but the AC brakes earlier and I was able to keep the lead till the end. Level on points going into the third race, which is one long lap around the Nordschleife, and I stood no chance here as the AC was able to make a 30-second gap between us, while also having skill issues. The last 2 races I needed to qualify. Starting off with Monaco, I managed to be 4/10 ahead on the first sector, but shockingly I gained another 6 seconds through the second sector, and another 2 on the final parts. It still fancied a chance at the lead, but with some slight back and forth, it finally gave up, giving me the win around here. 32 points for each driver and 1 race remaining. P1 was secured in quali and the race went alright. It was very close at the end, but my car manages to hold on by a single tenth, clutching out this championship. I wanted to try using it in the tuning one as well, but sadly it can't do it. However, there is one car that might be able to. Against the Opera S2K and Buick, which are the toughest opponents, how will the Midget do? The Midget has a good start, getting past most of them, and the S2K, however, has such good grip that it's basically glued to me, which gives the Buick a chance to catch up. I was saving my nitro mostly for when I actually needed it, like here on the final lap where the S2K almost managed to get back the lead, barely holding it off there, but somehow the Midget takes the first win. Second race was painful due to the straights. However, the grip my car had did help out a lot. The S2K was yet again glued so tightly, winning only by a small margin. Tokyo is up next and it favors more top speed cars, so the Buick easily gets into the lead. I just tried to stay as close as I could with them till the long straight. Before that, I had the slightest gap to go for and got P2. After this, the S2K fell off quite a bit due to the lack of top speed. Despite the Buick hitting every corner possible, it was staying ahead no matter what. I only had 1 bar of nitro left and I used it all here, winning again with such a close margin. The same can't be said for the next track. I don't know why, but AI doesn't drive that well around El Capitan, so this was an easy win. I had more than enough points so I could skip the final race and win this championship. Up next, we have Race of NA Sports, and for this one, it might surprise you, but the Cizeta V16 is the worst car you can use here. But how? It has so much power. Surely it's not that bad, right? This thing has genuinely the worst handling out of all the MR cars in this game, and if you want to stop, you have to do it 5 kilometers before the actual turn, otherwise you're not stopping on time. Are you fucking kidding me? It's pretty much like driving a wet bar of soap. I almost lost this event just due to the brakes being so weak. I did manage to complete this still, but this is genuinely a car that I wouldn't recommend anyone to try. There's just nothing really good to say about it whatsoever. For the Concept Car Club, this Land Rover is the worst you can take. It's a very chunky sized car with over 2,500 kilos. Now it does manage to get ahead of a Suzuki Concept, but you gotta remember, this thing has a V8 in it, and is struggling to keep ahead of a Suzuki. Not just that, but pretty much most other concept cars leave this heavy bastard in the dust. So I did what Land Rover actually didn't do. Lower the actual weight of this. Still though, this thing sucked. The only way you could win is by committing vehicular manslaughter. For the Supercar Festival, the Cizeta makes a reappearance, but this time I chose to add a few upgrades to it. Not on power, but mainly the handling. Despite that, this car was still ass. Not even upgrades can save this thing, it is just that bad. I almost forgot I still had some beginner events to clear, so the next one is the 4-wheel drive event. And the worst option here is the Daihatsu Storia with an amazing 59 horsepower. It mainly needed a bit of power upgrades to make it work in here because it already has pretty good handling. For the MR Cup, stat-wise, the Europa seems to be the worst option. You could also pick the Cizeta here technically because of its handling, but I've used it a few times already. The Europa honestly doesn't feel that bad. It was on road tires, so it did slide a bit, but it managed to beat its opposition with ease. For K-Car, it has to be the Subaru 360. Without any changes, it can't get past 75 kilometers an hour. So I added a bit of power and a transmission upgrade. Funnily enough, this car can also have the aspiration glitch done on it, and if you do, you can actually complete one of the Subaru events using this. And the last thing left was Spider and Roadster, which I used a Toyota Sports 800 for and one with a few upgrades. Now I only have GT World 2 complete, and after asking around with a few people, the worst car that I can find that might still have a chance of doing this is the Opel Calibra Touring Car. It has bad stats overall, and it's all-wheel drive, which isn't the best for long distance races like the ones in GT World. And the tire wear on this is not that great either, which makes it the ideal car to attempt the final championship with. Now all I needed to do is actually get a decent lineup for this.
Pescarolo and GT won't be doable, but the Pescarolo probably isn't. Was almost perfect. That was almost perfect. It was almost perfect, yeah. This is a no-no lineup. Get out of there. Nope. R92. You see Audi Rider or Minolta? Run. Nano 5? Run. Nano 5 especially in Spec 2 because they fixed the granny shifting. R92, Minolta, R8, that's a triple no-no. That's an M5 again in first place. That's an extra 9 with Minolta in second place. Oh, Sidebar Speed 8. Nope. It was like good. It was like yes. No. Minolta first place. Nope. Get out of there. Nope. Leave. Nano 5, Audi R8, Bentley 787. It was a quadruple no-no. You got it. There it is. This is the lineup. This is the god roll. You ain't getting anything better than this, bruh. Max win.
After an hour, yes, an hour of this, I finally got something that I can work with. Most of the cars seem to be similar, so I was able to hold them off for a bit, until they started punting me off the line. Even the CLK tried to squeeze me to the wall, and somehow helped me out with that. Unfortunately, my front tires were dying so quickly, I just couldn't hold the R390 behind. I stayed out for another lap and went into the pits, hoping maybe someone else will go for a change, but I was the only person in this entire race that went for a change of tires, meaning I finished dead last here. Not a good start at all. Here's hoping the other tracks will give me a better chance like Trial Mountain. I had a plan this time. I would qualify, but while doing my warm-up lap, the AI is on their hot lap, so what I did was pretty much hold up the R390 for a while so it wouldn't secure a good spot, and then did my lap. With this, it fell down behind the Chevy Camaro, and as for the race, I just immediately catapulted with the Nitro to make a bit of a gap, and it worked. The other three cars were busy fighting each other, which helped me out a lot. I pitted on lap 6 with quite the lead. The McLaren kept the R390 busy, but eventually it overtook for the lead. But by then, they all started to pit one by one, and I regained the lead, finishing 7 seconds ahead, and now I'm 5 points behind the R390. The third race is Hong Kong, a street track which is also a bit heavy on the tires. I did the same thing in quali, and now the R390 starts dead last, which on a tight track like this is really good. My main rivals for the race are the CLK and McLaren. I was able to keep them behind during my first stint, but I could already tell they had much more pace than me around here. I stayed out till lap 8, but my opponents stretched out their stints. The CLK pitted a few laps later and overtook me just as I was on the start-finish straight. The same happened a lap later with the McLaren, although I was able to stay close to this car at least, and with a few fancy racing lines, I was able to get close enough for an overtake. The CLK by then was so far ahead that I just gave up on trying and settled for second place. The R390 didn't have the best of races, finishing only in P4, meaning the championship is much closer now between the three of us. Seoul is the only track in here that you can just slap super hards on and proceed to wall grind for 18 minutes. That's the only way this Calibra is staying ahead around here. I thought it would end in this order, but the CLK pulled a Ferrari strategy and pitted right before the final lap, basically giving the cars behind free positions. Now I have a 4-point lead going into race number 5, which is around El Capitan. Sadly though, this track eats the tires a lot. I went for the mediums in the front, softs in the rear, and that combo managed to last only 5 laps. I then tried the hard medium setup till the end. Despite the AI pitting as well, I wasn't anywhere close to them. I could battle it out for P3, which on the final lap I managed to claim, but I was 21 seconds behind the lead. Maybe it would have been different if I immediately went for the hard medium setup, but it is what it is. We go to New York next. And my blocking was so good that both my rivals are dead lost for the start of the race, and the McLaren in P2 might be able to block the rest of them for a bit. It did manage to help out for half the race, but by lap 6 my fronts were struggling to work. I tried the usual option of pitting early and then seeing if I can catch up again, but that didn't work, so I had to rely on option B, which was closing the door and shunting the opponents as much as I could to drag out my stint even longer and then pit later. I know it's not the cleanest way to do this, but when you have cars like this with such grip and power over you, what else can you really do? I managed to hold out the R390 and CLK and give the McLaren a gap so it could stay in the lead, then pitted for soft tires and continued on. My opponents as well pitted, but the CLK managed to stay ahead. The R390 almost was able to overtake, but I wasn't going to let that happen. With all this, the best I could do is P3, behind the CLK and McLaren. The standings are so close between the four of us now, it's insane. Paris is the one track that might help me out in this championship. Because of it being a tight track as well, and my rival starting last, the Camaro is able to block my main rivals for quite a while. The only car close to me was the McLaren, but I was mainly concerned with the R390 and CLK here. For a majority of the race, I stayed ahead, with a lot of blocking as well, and the McLaren stayed behind me, eventually pitting on lap 9 for a new set. The Chadmaro helped out a lot, and its effort won't go without a reward. Everyone else slowly pitted as well, with the CLK almost overtaking me in the pits, but I kept the position. The R390 as well pitted, but that was easier to overtake. Only one that didn't pit so far was the 2D. It eventually did it on the very last lap, giving me P1, but I didn't just want to win the race. I wanted to get the best advantage possible, so I slowed down the entire grid, managed to let the Chadmaro pass the other rivals, and hold the lineup like this till the finish line, which was amazing as it resulted in me having a 6-point lead going into the next race. To be honest with you, Suzuka I could already tell my car would struggle on, so I gave up on the idea of racing. Instead, I chose to be a wrecking ball for 9 laps, causing pain and agony upon my rivals. There was no other way that I would beat any of these cars here without this. I actually got very lucky as one of my hits got the CLK permanently stuck for the remainder of the race.
Can't make it, the shit's stuck. Out of my way, son! Stuck!
So I only had to worry about the R390 and McLaren. The other 2 cars I just let them by and gave them free points. This was probably the stupidest race I've ever had in this game, but it just somehow worked out. I got P3 in this race, the R390 in 4th, McLaren in 5th, and the CLK, maybe it'll get unstuck eventually. Now I have a 7-point lead, which means if I want to win this championship, I need to win this next race, because my car is not surviving 3 laps of the Nordschleife. Before this race, I went for one last fuel change and check up with the GT guy. It was all down to deep forest. I was able to get a good quali and my main rival started in 2nd place. And for the first couple laps, I was actually able to stretch out a gap, being a couple seconds ahead, but a bit into the race, the R390 just kept getting closer and closer, eventually going for the lead. Knowing my tires aren't going to survive any longer, I had to punt him off the track, which made him stop completely. And with that, I wobbled my way back into the pits for a new set of tires. The CLK stayed ahead and the R390 was right close to it. It was able to hold it off for a little bit, and when they both went into the pits, I managed to regain the lead. Then the race went as the start, stretch out a tiny gap, and in the last lap, the R390 woke up again for a battle. It was all down to this, with my tires being on life support, having to just park the car into the corners, which the R390 didn't like, as it tried to overtake me off track, and then proceeded to give me the biggest bump possible on the final corner, but somehow I was able to stay ahead and win this race, only 3/10 ahead of the R390. With an 11-point lead, I can skip the final race, and I was able to win the championship with only a 5-point lead, finishing this entire run as a whole. Honestly, this run was a little bit of a mixed bag. Like, some cars I did actually enjoy driving, like the Midget, the 2CV. Then there's the other half, like the Calibra, the Cizeta, the Land Rover. Those were just straight up pain. But in the end, these are the cars that I was able to do this entire run with. It was painful and stressful towards the end, but it was definitely worth seeing the finish line with the Calibra. And with that, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see a part 2 of this, of me doing extreme events and other side events, do let me know in the comments down below. Thank you again to all the YouTube members and patrons for supporting the channel. And with that, I hope you have a good rest of your day.